May I sit at this table with you? Those 5 simple words quietly changed 3 lives forever. A young woman on crutches walked into a cafe packed with people, carrying a kind of despair that was difficult to name, a longing to feel close again to the family she had lost in a tragedy that took everything from her. At a corner table near the window, a single father and his 6-year-old daughter were sitting together, completely unaware that they were about to meet a stranger, someone who would shatter their world, and then, piece by piece, rebuild it from the ground up. Before the story continues, let us know where you're watching from. And if you love stories about kindness, healing, and fateful encounters, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any stories like this one. It was a Saturday morning in late March at Sawada Coffee in the West Loop neighborhood of Chicago. After months of gray, gloomy winter, the first rays of sunshine had finally appeared, drawing people back outside. Couples sat across from each other on late brunch dates, students hunched over their laptops, young families pushed strollers through the narrow aisles. Every table was full, not a single empty chair in sight. Peter Winslow took a sip of his familiar black coffee and looked up and saw her. A young woman leaning on crutches, carefully navigating the crowded space of the cafe. Her blonde hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, a few strands falling around her face. Her brown eyes darted constantly from side to side, as if desperately searching for a remaining seat. She moved with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to crutches. But what Peter couldn't take his eyes off was the expression on her face. It was determination, mixed with a quiet despair, as though if she couldn't find a place to stop right now, she would lose something deeply important. And then, in the middle of that crowded cafe, she began walking toward Peter's table. But what had brought the young woman to Sawada Coffee on that particular day? And why would a small table in a cafe become the starting point of a new family? The answer begins in the very next moment. And then Pumpkin escaped during the presentation and ran straight under Ms. Davenport's desk. She screamed so loudly that 6-year-old Ruby was telling her story with complete enthusiasm, her hands waving wildly as if the entire world were unfolding right in front of her. Peter smiled at his daughter, but his eyes never left the woman. She approached a table near the entrance where a couple sat close together, clearly in the middle of a private date. Peter saw her say something, her voice gentle and polite. The woman in the couple shook her head firmly. The woman on crutches gave a small nod, apologized, and turned away. She tried another table where a man sat alone, papers and a laptop spread across the tabletop. And then another shake of the head. Peter saw her shoulders slump. He saw the way she bit her lip, as if trying to keep the tears from spilling over. Something about the sight made his chest ache. A sharp, very real pain that was hard to name. "Dad, are you even listening to me?" Ruby's voice pulled Peter back. "Of course, sweetheart. Pumpkin ran away and that was 5 minutes ago. Now I'm talking about—" But Peter's attention drifted once again. The woman on crutches was now standing in the middle of the crowded cafe, looking around with an expression that made his heart tighten. Lost. Alone. As if she were surrounded by people, yet belonged nowhere. As if she were on the verge of giving up something incredibly important. In that brief moment, their eyes met across the noisy cafe. Peter saw vulnerability in her gaze, a fragile flicker of hope, and a deep sorrow that seemed to rise from the very bottom of her soul. She took a deep breath, adjusted her crutches, and began walking toward their table. The scent of freshly roasted coffee blended with vanilla from the pastry counter. Soft indie music mingled with the low hum of conversation. Outside the window, Chicago was slowly waking under the rare early spring sunlight. "Excuse me," her voice sounded as she reached their corner table by the window. Gentle, polite, steady, though Peter could still hear the tremor she was trying to hide beneath it. "I'm really sorry to bother you. I know this may sound strange, but would you mind if I shared this table with you? It's very crowded, and there aren't any seats left." She paused. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I really need to be here today. It's very important to me." Peter stood up immediately and pulled out the empty chair across from them. "Of course, please, have a seat. I'm Peter, and this is my daughter, Ruby." Relief spread across the young woman's face, like dawn breaking through storm clouds. She carefully sat down and leaned her crutches against the wall beside her. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Hannah." She looked at both of them, and Peter noticed her eyes were still wet, as if it would only take the smallest reason for the tears to fall. "I asked those tables first, but they said they needed privacy. I started thinking I'd have to leave, and Her voice caught. "I really couldn't bear to leave without sitting down for a while. We're happy to share the table," Peter said warmly. "It gets really busy here when the weather's nice." Ruby, never a shy child, immediately leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "We come here every Saturday. It's our special tradition. I always get hot chocolate with lots and lots of whipped cream, and Dad always orders boring black coffee." She scrunched up her nose at Peter's cup. "Do you like hot chocolate?" Hannah smiled. Though sadness still lingered on her face, the smile reached all the way to her eyes. "I love hot chocolate. It sounds perfect for today." A barista appeared, and Hannah ordered a coffee and a croissant. As soon as the barista walked away, Ruby launched straight back into conversation with the boundless energy only a 6-year-old could have. "I'm in first grade, and my teacher is Ms. Davenport. We have a hamster in class named Pumpkin because it's orange and fluffy. Do you have any pets?" "Not right now," Hannah replied, her fingers curling around her coffee cup as if trying to hold on to its warmth. "But I used to have a cat named Misty. She was gray with little white paws." "That's such a pretty name." "Sophie, my friend, taught me a Spanish word, niebla. It means fog. Her family speaks Spanish." Hannah's smile widened. "That's exactly why I named her that." Peter realized he was starting to relax. There was something about Hannah, even with the sadness she carried, the way she listened to Ruby with genuine attention. She asked about school, about Pumpkin, about Ruby's friends. She laughed at the funny parts, widened her eyes at the dramatic ones. About 15 minutes passed before Hannah gently set her coffee cup down. She looked at the two of them with an expression Peter couldn't quite name. Gratitude, mixed with something deeper, something more painful. "There's something I want to tell you," she said softly. "The reason I needed to be here today is because today is my birthday. I just turned 23. Ruby's eyes went wide with excitement. "Your birthday?" And without thinking, without asking permission, Ruby jumped to her feet and sang out loud, "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hannah. Happy birthday to you." Peter immediately joined in, his deeper voice blending with his daughter's high, slightly off-key, but enthusiastic singing. A few people at nearby tables turned to look. A woman smiled and joined in on the final line. An older couple across the cafe sang along as well. When the song ended, tears were streaming down Hannah's cheeks, but she was smiling through them. Peter saw something break open in her eyes, like a small crack in the armor she had been wearing for so long. She wiped her tears with trembling fingers. "That was the most beautiful thing anyone has done for me in a very long time. Thank you. Thank you." both of you." "Everyone deserves a birthday song," Ruby declared with absolute certainty. Then her face suddenly lit up. "Dad, we have to get her a birthday cake. You can't have a birthday without cake." "Oh no, please don't." Hannah shook her head quickly. Peter glanced toward the pastry case near the register. "The cake here is actually really good. Are you okay with it? It's your birthday." "You've already been so kind," Hannah said, her voice breaking. "I don't want to be any more trouble." "You're not a bother at all," Peter said gently. "Truly. Please let us celebrate with you." Despite Hannah's repeated protests, Peter still excused himself and walked toward the counter. A few minutes later, he returned with a small chocolate cake, topped with smooth vanilla buttercream, a single lonely candle standing in the center. As Peter leaned down to light the candle, a few people at nearby tables began to notice. Someone softly started singing, and very quickly, the entire corner of the cafe where they sat joined in a familiar melody. Hannah closed her eyes. Peter saw her lips move slightly, as if she were whispering a wish meant only for herself. Then she leaned forward and blew out the candle. A small round of applause followed, spreading through the warm space of the cafe. "All right," Ruby announced solemnly. "The birthday girl gets the first piece, and the biggest one." She carefully cut the cake with a seriousness that was almost funny, as if it were an important mission. As they shared the cake together, something subtly shifted in the air. The sweetness of the moment and the unexpected kindness from strangers seemed to open a door inside Hannah, a door she had kept tightly locked for a very long time. "This cafe," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes fixed on the plate in front of her. "This was my family's place, our Saturday morning tradition, just like yours and Ruby's." Peter's chest tightened. He glanced at Ruby, who had stopped eating her cake, her child's intuition sensing the weight in Hannah's voice. Hannah looked up, her gaze meeting Peter's. "It was me, my younger sister Paige, and my parents. We lived just a few blocks from here, in a small apartment above Myopic Books. My father was a firefighter at Station 18. My mother was a pediatric nurse at Lurie Children's Hospital." She paused. Peter saw her hand tremble around her fork. "We never had much, but Saturday mornings at Sawada Coffee, those were the happiest moments of my life. Paige always ordered strawberry waffles with extra syrup. My dad told terrible jokes that made my mom groan, but had us laughing nonstop. And my mom always, secretly, took a bite from everyone's plate." Hannah's voice began to shake. "We sat at a table, just like this one. And during those hours, nothing else in the world mattered." Peter instinctively reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. "What happened, Hannah?" Hannah closed her eyes. A single tear slowly rolled down her cheek. 2 years ago, there was a gas leak in our building. The landlord had been warned many times about the old corroded pipes, but he always said, next month he'd fix it. Next month. And then, next month again. She took a trembling breath, her fingers tightening around Peter's hand as if it were the only lifeline she had. "That night, we were all asleep." Her voice broke. The explosion. The next words were almost a whisper. "I woke up in the hospital. 3 days later, the entire building had collapsed." Hannah's whole body shook. Peter could see the memories rushing back, the sounds, the smell of smoke, the sheer terror. "I was trapped under concrete and steel beams for nearly 6 hours before the rescue team found me." Her voice grew softer, as if she were reliving every second. "I remember the sound of twisting metal, the smell of gas, complete darkness. I called out to them, my dad, my mom, Paige, but there was only silence. Tears now streamed uncontrollably down her face. My left leg was completely crushed. The doctors said it couldn't be saved. They had to amputate it. Ruby's eyes shimmered with tears pooling at the corners. Peter squeezed Hannah's hand tighter. And then Hannah said the words Peter knew were coming, yet could never truly prepare himself to hear. My parents and Paige. Her voice shattered. They didn't make it out. They died in the collapse. Paige, she was only 14. The space around them seemed to go quiet. The hiss of the espresso machine, the laughter from other tables were still there, but distant, as if coming from another world. She wanted to be a veterinarian, Hannah continued, her voice thick with emotion. She loved every animal she ever met. She brought stray cats home, took care of injured birds until they could fly again, cried over animals killed on the roadside. She had the biggest heart I've ever known. Hannah's tears fell freely. Peter felt his own eyes burn. And my parents, they spent their entire lives saving other people. My father ran into burning buildings. My mother fought every day to save sick children. Her voice dropped to a whisper. But they couldn't save themselves. They couldn't save Paige. And they couldn't save me. Before Peter could say anything, Ruby quietly slid off her chair and walked around the table. Without a word, she wrapped her small arms tightly around Hannah. I'm really sorry about your family, Ruby said softly, with the pure empathy only a child can have. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. But you're not alone now. We're here with you. Hannah pulled Ruby closer and broke down, sobbing into the little girl's hair. Peter stepped in, placing his hand on Hannah's shoulder, holding them together. They stayed that way for a long time. 3 people, strangers less than an hour ago, now bound together by unexpected kindness and shared loss. When Hannah finally calmed, she looked up, her eyes red and swollen. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You don't need to apologize, Peter said firmly. Not for your pain. Never. Hannah wiped her face and took a shaky breath. I live with my aunt in Evanston now. She took me in after I was discharged and finished rehab. But it doesn't feel like home. Nothing feels like home anymore. She looked around the cafe, every table, every corner. Today is my birthday. All I wanted was to come back here, to feel close to them one more time. This is where we were happiest. I thought if I could just sit at a table in this cafe, maybe it would feel like they hadn't completely left. Hannah looked at Peter, fresh tears welling up again. But when I arrived and saw how crowded it was, I almost left. Then you said, yes? You let me sit here. You sang to me. You bought me a cake. Her voice trembled. You made me feel like I mattered, on a day when I felt completely alone in this world. You do matter, Ruby said firmly, still standing beside Hannah. And you're not alone anymore. Now you have us. Peter smiled at the purity of his daughter's heart. He thought about how, for the past 3 years, since the day his divorce from Erica had been finalized, the 2 of them had come to this cafe regularly, almost like an unspoken vow. Saturday mornings had become sacred time, a rare moment of peace amid the chaos of single parenthood. She's right, Peter said. You don't have to be alone today. This afternoon, we're planning to go to Lincoln Park. Nothing special. Just an ordinary Saturday for the 2 of us. Would you like to come along? Hannah looked stunned, as if she had just heard something too good to believe. Are you sure? I don't want to intrude on your time together. You wouldn't be intruding, Peter said, his voice firm but gentle. We want you to come. Truly. Hannah hesitated for exactly one breath, then nodded. I, I'd really like that. Thank you. They spent the rest of the afternoon at Lincoln Park. Ruby ran straight for the swings as soon as they arrived, pumping her legs higher and higher, her laughter soaring on the wind. Peter and Hannah sat on a bench, talking in the way people only can when they feel a connection that is both surprising and somehow meant to be. The Chicago spring breeze blew softly, carrying the scent of damp earth and newly bloomed flowers. Sunlight filtered through the still sparse trees, scattering flickers of light across the paths. "How long have you had your Saturday morning tradition?" Hannah asked, watching Ruby swing higher and higher. 3 years, Peter replied, and for the first time he opened up about his own story. Since the divorce was finalized, Ruby was 3 when her mother and I separated. "I'm sorry," Hannah said quietly. "That must have been very hard." Peter nodded, surprised at how easy it felt to say these things while sitting beside her. "It was hard, but necessary. Erica and I, my ex-wife, we got married very young, 22, right out of college. Back then, we thought we wanted the same things. It turned out we didn't." He paused, watching Ruby jump off the swing and run toward the climbing bars. "She's an artist, a free spirit. She loves spontaneity, adventure, road trips dreamed up at the last minute. And me?" Peter smiled softly, as if admitting a long-known truth. "I'm a homebody. I like routine, quiet mornings, stability." Peter let out a slow breath. "When Ruby was born, we both tried very hard to make things work. But trying to become someone you're not, it's exhausting. We didn't hate each other. There was no anger. It was just, slowly, we stopped loving each other, like colors fading under sunlight." "That sounds even harder than anger," Hannah said. "It is," Peter admitted, "because there's no one to blame. No betrayal, no dramatic fights. Just a sad truth. Sometimes loving someone isn't enough if 2 people want fundamentally different lives." Hannah was quiet for a moment, then asked softly, "Where is she now?" "Milwaukee," Peter replied. "She's a curator at a gallery there. She visits Ruby twice a month and calls often. Our divorce was relatively peaceful. We chose mediation instead of lawyers. I got primary custody because my teaching job is more stable, and Ruby needed that consistency." "You're a teacher?" Peter smiled. "A middle school art teacher. Honestly, it's chaos, creativity, and hormones all mixed together." He chuckled. "But I love it." "An art teacher," Hannah said, and something lit up in her eyes. "That fits. You have that energy, patient, thoughtful, creative." "What about you?" Peter asked. "You mentioned graphic design." Hannah nodded. "Freelance. I work from home, which has been better since the amputation. I had to relearn my entire workflow. I used to pace around the apartment when I was thinking, then sketch while standing at an easel. Now, I do most of my work seated on a tablet. It took months to adapt, but I did." "That's incredible," Peter said sincerely, "and incredibly resilient." "I didn't have many choices," Hannah replied softly. "Either adapt or give up. And I'd already lost everything else. I wasn't about to lose my career too." The afternoon passed, and they discovered more shared interests. They both loved hiking, though Hannah hadn't been on a trail since the accident. They both preferred indie films over blockbusters. They both believed the smell of Chicago after rain was the best scent in the world. They both loved bookstores with creaking wooden floors and cafes with mismatched furniture that somehow still had a soul. But what stayed with Peter most wasn't those similarities. It was the way Hannah laughed, fully, wholeheartedly. as if she hadn't allowed herself to laugh like that in a very long time. The way she spoke to Ruby, never condescending, never with that pitying tone adults sometimes used with children, but with genuine interest. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about her design work. And there were moments, brief, quiet moments, when the sadness would suddenly wash over her. Peter saw it in her eyes, in the fleeting tension around her mouth. Each time, he didn't try to force her to be cheerful. He simply guided the conversation gently in another direction, just enough to give her space to breathe. As evening settled in and they finally said goodbye in the parking lot, they exchanged phone numbers. "Thank you for today," Hannah said. Her eyes were still slightly swollen, but there was something in them that Peter hadn't seen that morning. A real happiness, fragile but genuine. You and Ruby turned what I thought would be the loneliest and most painful birthday of my life into something beautiful. I'll never forget it." "Next Saturday, same place?" Peter asked, surprising himself with how much he hoped she would say yes. Hannah's face lit up. I'd really love that." The messages started that very evening. "Hannah, thank you again for today. I can't stop thinking about how kind you and Ruby were to a complete stranger. Peter, you're not a stranger anymore. You're our friend. And friends don't thank each other for birthday cake. It's clearly stated in the Friendship Handbook, page 47. Hannah, then I suppose I need to read that handbook more carefully. Peter, it's an extremely thrilling book, right up there with furniture assembly instructions and tax forms. The following Saturday, Hannah showed up at Sawada Coffee with a slightly nervous smile, as if she still wasn't entirely convinced that she truly belonged there. But the moment Ruby saw her, she squealed with excitement and ran straight over to hug Hannah tightly. And just like that, it felt as though Hannah had always been part of their Saturday morning tradition. Weeks passed, slowly turning into months. Hannah began joining them in many other things as well. Trips to myopic books, where each of them wandered into a different section and texted each other silly book titles they happened to find. Movie nights at Peter's apartment after Ruby had gone to sleep, where they cheerfully debated plot holes and character motivations. The art exhibition at Ruby's school, where Hannah stood beside Peter, holding up her phone to take pictures with a pride no different from that of a real aunt. Hannah taught Ruby how to draw cartoon characters, sitting at Peter's kitchen table with colored pencils scattered everywhere. And Peter and Hannah texted each other late into the night, about everything and about nothing at all. Silly memes, small observations from the day, and deeper conversations about grief, hope, and rebuilding a life from broken pieces. 2 months after they met, Hannah made a decision. "I'm moving back to Chicago," she said one evening, as the two of them sat on the couch after Ruby had gone to bed, watching a documentary that neither of them was really paying attention to. Peter's heart gave a small leap. "Really?" "My aunt supports it," Hannah continued. "She knows I need to rebuild my life, and living far away from the only place that feels like home, it doesn't make sense. I'm looking for an apartment around here. There's a studio available 3 blocks away." "That's wonderful," Peter said, trying to keep his voice steady even as his heart pounded. "I can help you move." "You don't have to." "I want to." On moving day, Peter recruited a few of his teacher friends. Mark Dillard, Kevin Rourke, and Jenna Carlisle. They carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs, assembled furniture, and hung artwork. Hannah ordered pizza for everyone, and by the end of the day, the small studio apartment truly felt like a home. 3 months into their friendship, Hannah had fully woven herself into the lives of the two of them. She knew Ruby hated broccoli, but loved Brussels sprouts. She knew Peter graded papers more efficiently with soft jazz playing in the background. She remembered both of their coffee orders exactly. She became the first person Peter texted when something funny happened. The person whose opinion he valued. The person whose laughter alone could make his entire day feel lighter. And then, one afternoon in June, as they sat in a cafe, not Sawada, but a new place, Peter realized that his feelings had quietly shifted from friendly to something deeper. Hannah was laughing about something silly that had happened during a graphic design client meeting. She tilted her head back, the afternoon sunlight catching her hair in a perfect way. Peter's heart skipped a beat. He was in love with her. Maybe. He had been for a long time. But he didn't say anything. Hannah had already endured too much loss. She was 9 years younger than him. And above all, there was Ruby to consider. What if he misread the signals? What if pursuing a romantic relationship destroyed the friendship they had so carefully built? So Peter chose silence. He cherished what they had, while quietly longing for more. 4 months after the day they met, everything changed. It was a Tuesday evening in early August. Peter was grading his students' art projects at the kitchen table, while Ruby sat beside him, carefully coloring. His phone rang. Erica's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, Erica. Is everything okay?" "Yes. Actually, I'm calling with good news." Her voice was excited, an energy Peter hadn't heard from her in years. "I've been offered a position at the Art Institute of Chicago, a curator role, with a path to senior curator within 2 years. It's exactly what I've been working toward. And it means I'll be moving back to Chicago." Peter's grip tightened around the phone. "You're moving back here?" "Yes. I've been thinking about this for a long time, even before this job came along. Seeing Ruby twice a month isn't enough. I want to be a real mother to her, not just a visiting guest. This job is the perfect opportunity." That's wonderful, Erica. Ruby will be very happy to see you more." "There's something else I want to say," Erica continued, her voice slowing. "I've been in therapy a lot. I've done a lot of reflection about myself and about us, about our marriage." Peter's stomach dropped. "Erica, let me finish," she interrupted. "We were too young when we got married. We let stress and our differences pull us apart. But maybe we gave up too soon. Maybe with time, with maturity, we could try again. Not right away, but someday." Peter felt as if he couldn't breathe. Think about it, Peter. A real family for Ruby. Both parents together, giving her the stability and love she deserves. I don't know what to say. You don't have to answer right now. I know this is a lot. Just think about it. For Ruby, if nothing else. When the call ended, Peter sat motionless at the kitchen table, his thoughts spinning. Ruby looked up from her coloring book. "That was Mom, wasn't it?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Is Mom coming to visit?" Peter took a deep breath. "Actually, Mom might be moving back to Chicago for a new job." Ruby's face lit up. "Really? Mom's coming back here? That's the best news ever." She jumped out of her chair, completely forgetting about her coloring. "Dad, this is amazing. I can see Mom all the time. And maybe, if Mom's here, you and Mom can be together again, like a real family, like Harper's parents. We could live together." Peter's heart sank. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple." "But it could be," Ruby insisted, with the innocent certainty of childhood. "If Mom is here, and you're here, you could fall in love with Mom again. That's how it always works in movies. Then we'd be a real family. I wouldn't have to go back and forth anymore. And we could have dinner together every night." Peter looked at his daughter, her eyes shining with hope, her radiant smile, and felt a dull ache spread through his chest. Sometimes, the people you love most, want things you simply cannot give them. Have you ever found yourself in an impossible position like that? That Saturday at Sawada Coffee, Hannah almost immediately sensed that something was wrong. Peter seemed distracted, far quieter than usual, barely touching his coffee. "Hey," she said softly, after Ruby ran off to look at the pastry case. "What's going on? You seem really distant." Peter sighed, rubbing a hand over his face as if trying to pull himself back into the moment. "Erica called. She got a job offer in Chicago. She's moving back." "Oh." Hannah's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Something passed across her face, so quickly that Peter couldn't quite read what it was. "That's good, right?" Hannah said, forcing her voice to stay even. "Ruby will get to see her mom more." Yeah, it'll be good for Ruby." "Is there something else?" Hannah asked carefully. Peter hesitated. How could he tell her that Erica wanted to try again? That his ex-wife had suggested rekindling their marriage? That he himself was confused, unsure how to make sense of it all? He chose his words as if stepping onto thin ice. "It's just, there are going to be a lot of changes, a lot to figure out." What Peter didn't know was that later that afternoon, when he stepped outside to take a call from his sister, Ruby had told Hannah everything, with the blunt innocence of a child who had no concept of holding things back. "You know what?" Ruby said, practically vibrating with excitement. "My mom is moving back to Chicago, and I told Dad that maybe they could fall in love again, and then we could be a family living together. Isn't that the best idea ever? Then I'd have both my mom and my dad in the same house." Hannah felt something shatter inside her chest. "That," she tried to say, forcing a stiff smile onto her lips, "that would be really wonderful for you, Ruby." "I really hope it happens," Ruby went on, completely unaware of the pain that had just flashed through Hannah's eyes. "I pray about it every night. I want my mom and dad to be together again." That night, Hannah lay awake in her studio apartment, staring up at the ceiling as the Chicago rain tapped a steady rhythm against the window. Of course, Peter would want his family reunited. Of course, he would choose what Ruby wanted most. Both parents. A complete family unit. What could Hannah possibly offer in comparison to that? She was just a broken girl who had wandered into their lives at a cafe. She had no right to stand in the way of Ruby having a whole family again. And Peter, he had never shown her that he saw her as anything more than a friend. She had been foolish to let herself fall in love with him. Foolish to imagine he might feel the same. Over the next 2 weeks, Hannah began to quietly withdraw. Peter's messages were answered less and less. Invitations were declined gently, politely enough that there was nothing to argue with, yet cold enough to hurt. "Want to go see a movie Friday night?" "I can't. Sorry, I'm buried in a big freelance deadline." "Saturday coffee?" "I'm not feeling very well. Maybe another time." "Next Saturday?" "I have to drive to Evanston to help my aunt with something." Peter was confused and hurt. What had he done wrong? What had he said to upset her? The change had started right after he mentioned Erica moving back. He tried calling, but Hannah let it go to voicemail. "Did I do something wrong? Please talk to me. I miss you." Hours later, the reply finally came. "I just think I've been imposing too much on your time with Ruby. You and she need your own space, especially with everything changing." Peter stared at the message, unable to understand it. Imposing? Hannah had become part of their family. How could she possibly think that? By the third Saturday without Hannah, Ruby looked around Sawada Coffee with confused, wounded eyes. "Where's Hannah? Why isn't she coming anymore? Did we do something to make her mad?" "No, sweetheart," Peter said, trying to keep his voice gentle. She's just busy. But she's never busy like this before, Ruby whispered, her voice small and hurt. I miss her, Dad. She's my friend. Peter felt his throat tighten. I miss her too, he admitted. That night, after tucking Ruby into bed, Peter sat on the couch, trying to piece everything together. Hannah had started pulling away right after he mentioned Erica, and Ruby had been so excited about the idea of her parents getting back together. Unless... The realization hit him like a freight train. Ruby must have told Hannah about wanting her parents to reunite. And Hannah, sweet Hannah, who had lost her entire family, probably believed she was standing in the way of Ruby getting a whole home again. She was sacrificing her own happiness, sacrificing the friendship they had built, simply because she thought it was the right thing to do for Ruby. Peter jumped to his feet and grabbed his keys. 20 minutes later, Peter stood outside Hannah's apartment door and knocked. When Hannah opened it, surprise flashed across her face. Then, immediately, something like panic. Peter? What's wrong? Is Ruby okay? Ruby's fine, Peter said quickly. She's with our neighbor, Mrs. Pruitt. We need to talk, please. Hannah hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. The studio apartment was small but warm, and what made Peter stop short immediately was the photos. Photos everywhere. Pictures of her late family on every surface. A younger Hannah, Paige grinning, her parents with their arms around both girls. Moments frozen in time. A world that had been lost. They sat down on the old sofa. Peter turned to face her, direct enough to leave neither of them an escape. You pulled away because of Erica, didn't you? Hannah's eyes filled instantly with tears. Peter? Ruby told you, didn't she? Peter asked, his voice dropping. About wanting Erica and me to get back together? Hannah looked down, twisting her hands in her lap. She's excited about having both her parents in the same city. And she should be excited. She deserves a complete family, Peter. Parents who love each other, living together. After everything she's been through with the divorce, she deserves that fairy tale ending. Hannah, Peter said, his voice rough. Look at me, please. She looked up. Tears slid down her cheeks. I need you to understand something, Peter said firmly, taking her hands. Erica and I are not getting back together. We don't love each other. We haven't for years. Living in the same city doesn't change that. But she wants to try again. She mentioned it as a possibility, Peter said more firmly, and I didn't seriously consider it, not for a second. Erica and I don't belong together. We never truly did. We were young and in love with the idea of love, but we weren't compatible as partners. That hasn't changed. But Ruby wants... Ruby is 6, Peter said gently, but decisively. She has fairy tale ideas where everyone lives happily ever after in the same house. But that's not reality, and it's not what's best for her. Erica and I can still be great parents to Ruby without being married to each other. She'll understand when she's older. Peter, I'm not finished, he interrupted, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it. I need to say something, and I need you to really hear me. The past 4 months have been the happiest months of my life since the divorce, Peter said, his voice shaking. Not because of convenience, not because of circumstance, but because of you. Hannah stopped breathing. Because you make me laugh in ways I thought I'd forgotten how. Because you see the world through a lens that pulls me in. Because you're kind, resilient, real, and beautiful. And because when I'm with you, everything feels right in a way it never did with Erica. Hannah's tears fell harder. You can't say things like that. Why not? Peter asked, almost laughing through the pain. It's the truth. He took both her hands, holding them tightly. You're not standing in the way of anything, Hannah. You're not an obstacle to my family. You are my family. You've been my family since the day you asked to share our table. Ruby loves you, and I—" He took a trembling breath. "I love you. I am in love with you. I've been in love for weeks, maybe months, and I hope, you feel the same." Hannah looked at him, tears streaming, her breath uneven. "I do," she whispered. "I've loved you since the day you sang Happy Birthday to a stranger and made her feel seen. But I couldn't let myself hope that you—" Peter pulled her into his arms. Hannah broke down against his chest, as if all the emotions she had been holding back for weeks had finally found somewhere to spill. He held her tightly, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other wrapped around her waist. "You're allowed to hope," he whispered into her hair. "You're allowed to want. You're allowed to be loved, Hannah. You're allowed to be happy." "I love you," Hannah said, pulling back to look at him through tears. "I love you so much. And I love Ruby. But I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of ruining this. Scared you'll realize I'm not enough. Scared Ruby will resent me because I'm not her mom. Scared." Peter kissed her, softly, gently, filled with months of longing that had never dared to be spoken. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "You are enough," Peter said firmly, cupping her face in his hands. "You are more than enough. And we'll figure everything out together. Erica moving back, new custody arrangements, all of it. But please, don't pull away from us. Don't leave us. We need you." "I won't leave," Hannah promised, clutching his shirt like a lifeline. "I'm sorry I tried." "I'm so sorry." "You don't need to apologize," Peter said, kissing her forehead. "You being in our lives is the right thing." They held each other for a long time. Outside, the Chicago rain continued its steady rhythm against the window, as if washing away fear and doubt, leaving between them only the truth. The next morning, Peter sat Ruby down at the kitchen table for a conversation he knew he could not avoid. "Sweetheart," he began, his voice slow and steady. "I need to talk to you about Mom moving back to Chicago." Ruby looked at him with eyes full of hope. Her toast paused halfway to her mouth. "Your mom and I both love you more than anything in this world," Peter said. "And Mom wants to move back here so she can see you more. That is truly wonderful. But—" He drew in a breath, as if he had to gather all his courage to say what came next. "Mom and I are not getting back together." Ruby's face fell immediately. The toast hung forgotten in the air. "But why? If Mom is here, then—" "Because sometimes," Peter said gently, "people who care about each other realize they're better as friends than as husband and wife. Your mom and I tried very hard when we were married, but we weren't happy together in the way a couple should be. We made each other sad more than we made each other happy. But I want all of us together," Ruby said, her voice trembling, her eyes starting to fill with tears. "I know, sweetheart. And I understand why you want that," Peter said, taking his daughter's hand. "But we are still together, just in a different way. You have a mom who loves you, and you have a dad who loves you. Both of us are here for you. That's what matters. Not whether your parents live in the same house or are married to each other." Ruby was quiet for a moment, as if trying to swallow something too big and too difficult. Then she looked up. "Is it because of Hannah?" "No," Peter answered immediately, firmly, his hand tightening gently around those tiny fingers. "Your mom and I decided to divorce a long time before I met Hannah." He paused, choosing his words as if picking up shards of glass. "But I need to tell you something. About Hannah." Ruby watched him closely. "I love her, Ruby," Peter said. "Not just as a friend, but the way grown-ups love each other when they want to be together." To his surprise, Ruby's face didn't darken the way he feared. It softened, as if some part of her had been waiting to hear it for a long time. "Like a boyfriend and a girlfriend?" "Yes," Peter nodded. "Exactly like that." Ruby went quiet again, her 6-year-old mind processing feelings more complicated than she had words for. Then she said, "Honestly, I like Hannah. She's really nice. And Dad, you laugh a lot when she's around." "You laugh more." Peter felt his eyes sting. "I do laugh more when she's around." "Does she still get to have Saturday coffee with us?" "Always, sweetheart. Always." Ruby nodded slowly, then climbed into Peter's lap and hugged him tightly. "I still wish you and Mom could be together," she admitted, her voice muffled against his chest. "But I guess if you're happy with Hannah, that is okay." "Thank you for understanding," Peter whispered. "My girl." 6 weeks later, Erica moved back to Chicago. She and Peter agreed on a new custody arrangement during a meeting at a neutral cafe. Ruby would stay with Erica every other weekend, plus one evening a week for dinner. It took some time to adjust, but then it worked. The first time Erica came to pick Ruby up from Peter's apartment, she met Hannah. After Ruby ran off to pack her overnight bag in excitement, the two women stood a little awkwardly in the doorway, as if neither of them knew how to begin in the right way. Erica was exactly as Hannah had imagined. Tall, with an artist's presence, fingers speckled with paint, expressive eyes as if she were always thinking about a painting she hadn't yet created. "So, you're Hannah," Erica said, her voice calm but her expression unreadable. "I am," Hannah replied, trying to stay steady even as her heart hammered. "I want you to know, I'm not trying to replace you. You're Ruby's mother. I would never—" "I know," Erica cut in. And to Hannah's surprise, Erica smiled. A real smile, reaching all the way to her eyes. "Ruby talks about you all the time," Erica said. "Hannah taught me this. Hannah said that. I can tell she loves you. And I can also tell you make Peter happy in a way I never did." Erica paused, glancing toward Peter, who was in Ruby's room helping her pack. "I thought I wanted to try again with him," Erica said, her voice lower. "But the truth is, I was lonely, and I confused wanting to be a better mother with wanting to be his wife again. Those are two different things." Then she turned back to Hannah. "I'm truly glad he found you. Take care of them, will you? Both of them are pretty special." Hannah felt tears rise. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means more than you think." "Take good care of my daughter," Erica said, her voice softening. "Not just Peter. Ruby, too." "I will," Hannah nodded firmly. "I absolutely will." Over time, Erica and Hannah built a respectful co-parenting relationship grounded in their shared love for Ruby. Of course, there were awkward moments and adjustments, school events, holidays, the scheduling logistics. But they worked through it all with maturity, always putting Ruby first. One year after that fateful meeting at Sawada Coffee, on a Saturday morning in late March, at the very table where it all began, Peter got down on one knee. Ruby stood beside him in her prettiest dress, holding a small velvet box with both hands, trembling with excitement, barely able to contain herself. The cafe suddenly went quiet, as if every sound understood it needed to make room for this moment. Other customers began to notice. "Hannah Weller," Peter said, taking her hand as Hannah stared at him in disbelief. "The day you asked to share our table, You changed our lives completely." His voice was slow, each word carrying weight. "You brought light, love, and laughter back into our world. You showed me what true partnership looks like. You were patient with Ruby as she adjusted. You were kind to Erica. You have been everything I didn't know I needed." His voice trembled with emotion. "Will you marry us? Will you officially become a part of our family?" Hannah cried and laughed at the same time, one hand covering her mouth. "Yes," she burst out, breaking open. "Yes, yes, absolutely, yes." Ruby opened the velvet box, revealing a beautiful ring, simple, elegant, with a small diamond catching the morning light. The whole cafe erupted in applause. The very people who had sung "Happy Birthday" 8 months earlier were now cheering for a new beginning. Peter slid the ring onto Hannah's finger and kissed her. Ruby rushed forward, wrapping her arms around both of them. Mr. Grant Holloway, the owner, brought out a bottle of champagne for Peter and Hannah and hot chocolate for Ruby. On the house. "To the family that started at table 7, someone shouted, and the entire cafe raised their cups. 6 months later, they got married on a warm Saturday morning in September. The wedding took place right there at Sawada Coffee, at the corner table where everything began. The owner closed the cafe for the morning, transforming it into a space that was both simple and sparkling, with plain white flowers and string lights. Ruby was the flower girl, wearing the green dress she had chosen herself, and she announced to anyone willing to listen that she had known they were in love since forever. Erica came and took photos, genuinely happy for them. She brought along her new girlfriend, Natalie Grayson, an art conservator she had met at the museum. They sat in the front row, close together. When it was time for the vows, Peter spoke first. "Hannah," he said, his voice thick but clear. "When you asked if you could share our table, you gave me more than a coffee friend. You gave me hope. You taught me that family isn't only what you're born into, it's what you build, one kind moment at a time. You showed Ruby what resilience looks like, and you showed me what love is supposed to feel like." His voice was full of emotion. "I promise I will always save a seat for you at our table. Celebrate every birthday like it's the most important day of the year, and remind you every single day that you are exactly where you belong." Hannah's hands trembled as she held his. "Peter," she said, her voice breaking with tears, "I came to this cafe on the worst birthday of my life, to look for ghosts. But instead, I found a future. You and Ruby didn't just let me share your table. You made space for me in your heart. You taught me that pain and joy can exist at the same time, that being broken doesn't mean being worthless, and that family is something you create." Tears ran freely down her face. "I promise to love both of you with everything I have, to honor the family you welcomed me into, and to never forget that the best things in life sometimes begin with a simple question." Hannah took a breath, looking at Peter as if she were looking at an entire lifetime. "May I share this table?" When they kissed, the small crowd burst into cheers. Ruby jumped up and down, and somewhere in the crowd, someone started singing at the perfect playful moment, "Happy Wedding Day to You." The whole cafe laughed through tears. They cut a small chocolate cake with vanilla buttercream, just like the cake from that first birthday. Hannah closed her eyes and made a wish she had been wishing for months, and now it had only one word left: gratitude. As they danced their first dance in the narrow space between tables, Hannah rested her head on Peter's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for saying yes." Peter squeezed her hand and whispered back, as if it were the most beautiful secret of his life. "Thank you for asking." And Ruby, watching her dad and new stepmother dance, leaned against Erica and said with complete trust, "Mom, do you know what? Sometimes fairy tales are real. It's just, they don't look like they do in books." Erica bent down and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "You're completely right, sweetheart. Sometimes fairy tales look like this." Their story began with a birthday song and a slice of cake. It began with a young woman brave enough to ask for exactly what she needed, and a single father kind enough to say, "Yes." It began with a simple truth, one that quietly redirected the lives of 3 people forever. Sometimes, all we have to do is leave a seat at our table for someone desperately searching for a place to belong. Because the smallest acts of kindness can create the deepest connections. Because family is not always the people we are born to. Sometimes it is the people we choose to embrace, to walk alongside, to call home. And because sometimes, on an ordinary Saturday morning in a crowded cafe, a life can turn in a completely different direction. All because of one simple question. May I sit at this table with you? If this story touched your heart, please subscribe so you don't miss stories like this, and share this video with someone you think needs to hear it today. Because sometimes, just one small act of kindness is enough to change everything. Thank you for sharing this table with us.